Ancient Egypt's cat worship is a fascinating aspect of one of history's most intriguing civilizations, where felines were not only domestic companions but revered figures intricately woven into the spiritual and cultural tapestry of society. This concept revolves around the deification of cats, notably exemplified in the goddess Bastet, who was often depicted as a lioness or domestic cat. Bastet symbolized home, fertility, and protector against evil spirits, which underscores the ancient Egyptians' belief in the divine qualities of cats. The significance of this point in relation to the main topic, the dark secret behind Egypt's cat worship, lies in how this reverence holds deeper societal implications. The veneration of cats reflected their essential role in controlling vermin, which protected food supplies and, by extension, human civilization itself. This practical aspect was thus cloaked in spiritual significance, suggesting an intertwined relationship between survival and worship. Two prime examples illustrate this point. Firstly, the city of Bubastis became a center for the worship of Bastet, where annual festivals would draw thousands, celebrating with music, dance, and offerings. This phenomenon demonstrates how deeply entrenched cat worship was in the social and religious atmosphere of ancient Egypt. Secondly, archaeological discoveries, like the mass cat burial sites in Saqqara, highlight the extent to which cats were revered, often mummified and buried with great care. These practices indicate that cats were believed to embody magical properties, extending protection to the living and guiding the dead into the afterlife. However, this admiration wasn't without its complexities. Some scholars opine that the commercial breeding of cats, primarily for religious sacrifices, points to a darker side. This mass commodification could be perceived as exploitation, suggesting a stark contrast to the spiritual image portrayed. Moreover, not everyone saw cats with reverence. Some historical accounts, although rare, hint at cats being targeted during times of socio-political turmoil, an alternative viewpoint that challenges the narrative of ubiquitous feline adoration. This introduction to Egypt's cat worship creates a foundation for exploring how societal needs, religious beliefs, and economic practices interplayed, potentially leading to the darker aspects hinted at in the topic. By examining how humans projected divine qualities onto cats, we gain insights into the broader aspects of human nature, where practicality melds with spirituality, creating a legacy both wondrous and, at times, troubling. This dichotomy invites reflection on how humanity's relationships with animals are deeply layered and sometimes morally complex. Cats held an extraordinary place in ancient Egyptian society, revered not just as domestic companions, but as sacred beings intertwined with the spiritual and cultural fabric of the civilization. The prominence of cats in Egypt stemmed from both practical and religious considerations. They were protectors of grain stores, hunting rodents that threatened food supplies, and thus ensuring sustenance and economic stability. Beyond this pragmatic role, cats were seen as the earthly manifestations of the goddess Bastet, who embodied home, fertility, and protection. Bastet was often depicted with the head of a lioness or domestic cat, highlighting the divine association of felines. This sacred connection made cats integral to Egyptian life, with households frequently having images or statues of cats. Killing a cat, even accidentally, was considered a grave crime, often punishable by death, reflecting the profound respect and fear associated with these animals. Egyptian society's treatment of cats underscores the broader theme of animal worship and how spirituality and daily life were intricately connected in ancient times. One key example of cats' prominence in Egyptian society is the city of Bubastis, dedicated to Bastet. Bubastis hosted grand festivals celebrating the goddess, drawing worshippers from across Egypt to honor her, and by extension her feline form. Additionally, the Egyptian practice of mummifying cats indicates the depth of their reverence. Numerous cat mummies have been discovered, signifying that cats were given elaborate burials alongside humans, a testament to their esteemed status. There are diverse opinions on whether the Egyptians' treatment of cats was purely spiritual or driven by socio-economic factors. Some scholars argue that while religious reverence was significant, the practical benefits of cats safeguarding food supplies were equally compelling. However, this cultural phenomenon did not come without controversies and misunderstandings. The elevation of cats to divine status can sometimes lead to a dichotomous view, where they are either overly romanticized or diminished as mere rodent catchers. Moreover, the practices surrounding the worship of cats, such as mummification, might clash with modern ideals of animal rights and cause ethical debates about the treatment of animals in ancient contexts. Understanding the role of cats in Egyptian society provides insight into how these animals influence both the practical and spiritual aspects of life. This connection highlights the dual role of cats as both cherished protectors and divine creatures, influencing Egyptian cultural practices and spiritual beliefs, and offering a glimpse into the society's complex interplay of religion, economy, and daily life. The concept of mythology and spiritual symbolism in ancient Egyptian culture is deeply intertwined with their reverence for cats. In Egyptian mythology, cats were seen as sacred animals that held a pivotal place in the pantheon of gods and goddesses. This reverence is mainly attributed to the goddess Bastet, who was often depicted with the head of a lioness or domestic cat. Bastet represented protection, fertility, and motherhood, and cats, being her earthly counterparts, were associated with similar attributes. This spiritual symbolism placed cats in a revered status, making them integral to religious practices and daily life. The significance of this point in relation to Egypt's cat worship lies in its cultural impact. Cats were not just pets, they were symbolic intermediaries between the human and divine. Their protection was believed to extend into the afterlife, evident in tomb paintings and artifacts that depict them alongside pharaohs and nobles. This spiritual symbolism reinforced the belief in cats' divine connection, leading to laws protecting them and severe penalties for harming them. One example of this is the city of Bubastis, which became a major religious center dedicated to Bastet. Annual festivals in her honor attracted pilgrims from across Egypt, underscoring the widespread spiritual importance of cats. Another example is the practice of mummifying cats to accompany humans into the afterlife, which demonstrates the deep spiritual bond Egyptians believed existed between people and their feline companions. Supporters of this viewpoint argue that such spiritual symbolism enriched Egyptian religion and made it more accessible by incorporating familiar animals into divine narratives, thus strengthening communal and cultural bonds. However, challenges and controversies surrounding this concept include the assertion that such practices may have been more ritualistic than genuinely spiritual, with the promotion of cat worship serving as a means to enforce social order and hierarchy. The mythology and spiritual symbolism of cats also connect to other aspects of Egyptian life, such as their art and architecture, where feline imagery is prevalent. Additionally, it highlights the role of mythology in shaping societal values and influencing legal systems. As the video delves deeper into Egypt's cat worship, it becomes evident that mythology and spiritual symbolism were not just matters of religious observance, but were integral to the very fabric of ancient Egyptian civilization. Understanding these elements provides valuable insights into the complex relationship between humans, animals, and the divine in one of history's most storied cultures. The economics of cat worship delves into the material and socio-political undertones of ancient Egypt's veneration of cats. While commonly perceived as purely spiritual or cultural, the economic dimension reveals a more intricate tapestry where myth and marketplace intertwined. In ancient Egypt, cats were not merely household pets, but symbols of divine figures such as Bastet, the goddess of home and fertility. This divine status propelled an economy where owning, breeding, and even mummifying cats formed a lucrative industry. Temples dedicated to Bastet, particularly in Bubastis, became economic hubs where pilgrims would purchase cat amulets and mummies, believing they secured blessings in the afterlife. This economic facet is crucial to understanding the grander picture of cat worship. It highlights how religious practices were also heavily influenced by economic incentives, creating a symbiotic relationship between spirituality and commerce. For instance, cat breeders and mummifiers wielded significant economic power, with tens of thousands of cat mummies being discovered, indicating a thriving industry centered around feline deification. Additionally, trade routes facilitated not only the exchange of goods, but also cultural symbols. Egyptians traded cats with other civilizations, such as the Romans, thereby exporting a piece of their religious and economic life, further cementing the significance of cats both spiritually and financially. One supporting perspective suggests that the economic benefits tied to cat worship help sustain other aspects of Egyptian society, such as art and architecture, which were prominently financed by temple wealth. However, the practice was not without its challenges and controversies. The mass breeding and subsequent killing of cats for mummification is viewed by some as excessive and driven more by commerce than genuine devotion. Moreover, these industrial activities might have detracted from the sanctity of religious observance, turning sacred rites into mere economic transactions. The economics of cat worship intricately connects with the larger narrative of Egypt's feline adoration by illustrating how financial interests and spiritual beliefs commingle to influence cultural practices. Understanding this economic dimension allows us to appreciate how infrastructure, trade, and even societal hierarchies were shaped by cat worship, providing a more holistic perspective on Egypt's historical and cultural landscape. Ultimately, the economic implications underscore a complex interplay where commerce did not just thrive on religion, but actively shaped how it was practiced and perceived.